Hello, good morning, and welcome to this Dawn Busters Taste Challenge. I'm running late. I wanted to start at the bottom of the hour, but it didn't work out. Did not work out, unfortunately. But anyway, still dawn outside, so what difference does it make? It's dawn. Not quite dawn. It's nighttime. We have this big handle bottle, Crown Royal. I got this for $44.99 with two glasses, one of which broke already. Those glasses were sort of cheap. They were nice looking. I still have one. They were nice looking, say Crown Royal, CR. I stacked one on top of the other one. I pulled them apart. One broke, like a big chunk broke off of it. I told my friend David, I said, these things look like clay. You know, it's like cheap glass. It's thick, but it's like clay. There's no strength to it. I said that's why it was in a gift pack, I suppose. But I wasn't buying it for the glasses anyway. I was just buying it for the whiskey, and it was cheaper to buy the gift pack than it was to buy the regular bottle off the shelf at Walmart. It's cheaper by ounce to get this big handle bottle. There's the handle. See, introduced in 1939 as Seagram's Crown Royal. Now it's just Crown Royal. They dropped the Seagrams off. And anyway, Seagram sold it to Diageo 20 years ago. And Seagrams went out of business. So anytime you see something labeled Seagrams, these days it's just a name. The company is not in business. Here is the competitor, imported Seagram's Canadian Hunter. You say, I know you're thinking, I thought you said they dropped the name Seagrams. Well, yeah, they did, but this bottle is from the Seagrams days, 1984 to 89. Introduced with a fairly good Canadian sipping whiskey. You see how oxidized the gold part is? It's starting to turn green like. So this bottle is at least 31 years old. So you see they introduced it in 84 with a relatively high amount of fanfare. I guess it sold okay. But Seagram's had a lot of internal problems, and I guess they needed some cash flow. They own DuPont, believe it or not. DuPont, the huge chemical company. They sold that off in, I think, 94. That was a real bad sign that things were not going well. But anyway, that's their problem. Well, that was their problem. 89, they sold Seagram's Canadian Hunter, Dr. McGillicuddy's Fireball. You know how big that is today, Fireball. They sold Benchmark Bourbon, Eagle Rare Bourbon, and a whole bunch of others. I have to sit and think about them. I'd have to sit and think of them. I would be able to do it, but I'm not going to worry about it. Off to Sazerac. Now, Sazerac replaced this with a new one called Canadian Hunter. No Seagrams on it. And it's flavored natural. This could have flavorings too, but it says Canadian whiskey with natural flavors and no age statement. No age statement. This one had an age statement, age 3 years. So it's not profoundly different. Now, I did a taste challenge between the old one, this bottle, which I noticed international market has now dropped to $7.99. It was $8.99, same price as the current bottle. The new. But I was over there Saturday and it had dropped to $7.99. So if you want to go get you a bottle, a 31-year-old or older bottle, because it could be from 84 now, go to International Market in Metairie, Louisiana, and you can get it for $7.99. Bart Robinson, good morning, Jay's Coffee's Brewing, and I'm tuned in. Already drank my 3 cups. I had some corned beef hash with mushrooms, a scrambled egg, and onions, all fried on lard. Not a lot of lard, you know, just a thin sheen. And I had some of that Hondureña cheese. It's like hard cheese. If you hit somebody in the head with it, you bust their skin open. Gotta like slice it off with a grater, a knife. It's a strange. They put that on those. You know, when you go to a Mexican restaurant, if you get like tacos or whatever, I have that little white cheese. Picking up some peach and vanilla Crown today for the holidays. Okay, sounds good, Bart. I've never had a flavored Crown Royal. I know that's big. Now they got the canned Crown Royal RTDs ready to drink. That's a hot item right now. The purple, the regular Crown Royal and cola, the apple, the peach, I think there's a 4th flavor can. I'm not buying it. I mean, unless I find a single, but I'm not getting a whole 4-pack. No way. I don't even want to drink those things. I only get those kind of things just for a review. I wouldn't buy a 4-pack. I'd have to drink them because I'm not going to waste them. Okay, sis, here we go. You would assume, all right? You would assume that Crown Royal is going to win this, all right? I don't know what the price point was for Canadian Hunter in 1984, but it wasn't as high as Crown Royal. It was a cheaper brand. Now it's really a budget brand. So, but it's popular. Ooh-wee. I see so many people selling Canadian Hunter. Handle bottles, 750s, even liters, but you don't see liters too much. But they're around. It's one of the top 20 selling Canadian whiskeys. Just like Rich and Rare. You say Rich and Rare. Oh, no. Yeah, well, it's up there in the top 20. I'm not talking about Rich and Rare Reserve, although that might have entered the top 20 now because people found out about Rich and Rare Reserve. They know about it. Of course, Canadian Limited is up there. You say not Canadian Limited, not that filth. Well, it's in the top 10, I think. Well, we know what the top Canadian whiskeys are. Of course, Crown Royal's number 1. There's no debate there. See that every liquor store on earth, probably. Canadian Club is very popular, but we don't even get that in this town. Nowhere in this town. Man, that's crazy, huh? Well, I think Winn-Dixie might have started selling it, but they used to not. You know, Black Velvet, that's everywhere, more or less. Those are your big ones. Rich and Rare, Limited, Canadian Hunter. Oh, Canadian Mist, of course. That's a Sazerac brand now. They bought it from Diageo, Brown-Forman. Brown-Forman had owned that since 1971. Almost 50 years, and they unloaded it to Sazerac. Sazerac likes to shop around and buy these brands that maybe weren't given enough attention and maybe considered sort of, you know, dead brands. Not that Canadian Mist is a dead brand. It was in the top 10 for sure, probably the top 5 if I'm not mistaken. It's bland, but it's bland by design. Read the old ads from the 1960s and read their website now. Canadian Mist. They're basically telling you it's bland on purpose. So, oh, what am I thinking? I forgot about Seagram's VO. We know that's in the top 10. VO, everybody. I mean, if you go to Rouse's or Winn-Dixie, they always have displays of the big handle bottles and some kind of special. They run in some kind of special, you know. $19.99 for VO, and Walmart too. For the big, you know, the big 1,750 milliliter bottle. Sounds delicious. I'm cooking scrapple and eggs in coconut oil. Excuse me. I'm a little sick. Well, I didn't know about the can things. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They just came out. They're all around here. I'm a little sick, but not too bad off. I think the whiskey will help. You say, oh, yeah. Well, I'm no doctor. I just think it'll help. All right. Oh, well, that smells pungent, you know, fermented grains, yeast. I tell you, these Canadian whiskeys, they smell a lot of yeast, like a bread, bacon in the oven. You know what I'm saying? Like at a bakery. I don't know why, but it's strong. Almost like a moldiness. Well, you say, well, that's mold. A fungi family, fungi mold family. Yeah. And they're strong in that. That might turn a lot of people off with Canadian whiskey. They'd be like, ooh. Go get some Jim Beam. I said that Jim Beam white label smell like cellar mold. Now the Prohibition, you know, special edition one, limited edition that seems to be permanent. It did not have that non-chill filtered one. I got to revisit Jim Beam, tell you the truth. This one has that too. I don't know what it is. Hey, look, I don't think they changed Crown Royal's recipe at all. Seagram's had great success with it for 61 years. Made it the #1 Canadian whiskey in the world. And then Diageo bought it. You think they were going to mess with the recipe and then make it unpopular? I don't think so. All they did was buy the distillery, Crown Royal Distillery, over there in Gimli. I think it's Gimli, Ontario, Manitoba, I believe, up there by a lake, way up there in Canada. And they only have about like 70 employees, 70-something employees, and the whole place all automated. It's like the ultimate mass-produced, machine-constructed whiskey, right? The art is in the mass production of it. You know what I'm saying? It's a science, and that's the art of it, the science. The Canadian Hunter, it was made over there also. Now that Sazerac has it, don't know where it's made. I understand they had a production agreement with Diageo to keep making VO for years, so I know VO's still made up there. But Crown Royal has exactly 50 whiskeys blended in with it. 50 different whiskeys, mostly grain whiskeys, I'm sure. Different levels of grain spirits. But there's some percentage of it that's barley malt whiskey, you know, as they would call in Scotland, single malt whiskey. And then I know there's some rye whiskeys. As far as flavorings, this I do not know. They're allowed to have it. They don't have to disclose it. It doesn't taste like it. When you taste Crown Royal, the last thing that comes to your mind is, oh, it must have some flavoring added. You don't get that impression. And the flavorings would be things like rum, brandy, bourbon, wines. Doesn't matter what kind of wine, just as long as it's stored in small wood, I mean in a barrel. So anyway. Yeah. Okay, so this one's less yeast pronounced. They're both pungent, but this one is less pungent. It's less like in your face. Are they remarkably different one from the other? No. And remember, the Seagrams is the younger brother of the Crown Royal, which was developed in 1939 for the royal visit of King George VI of the House of so-called Windsor, really Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, but a German house, but that's another story. And his consort, Queen Elizabeth. And I was reading Parade magazine Sunday, and they were saying something about, oh, King George. It was something about that same visit. I don't know. King George and Queen Elizabeth I came to visit Canada. I was like, man, sorry. That was not Queen Elizabeth I. Queen Elizabeth I was from like 15, what year did she take over? Until 1603. 15, I can't remember. Henry VIII, Edward VI, Queen Mary, and then Queen Elizabeth I. 3 half-brother and sisters. Edward, the young brother, half-brother, and then Mary, and then Elizabeth. You say, well, if she was a Queen Elizabeth, then she was Queen Elizabeth II. No, she was a titular queen. They call that a titular queen. She was only a queen by marriage. It was a courtesy title. You understand? It's a courtesy title. But the bloodline runs through her husband and therefore on to the daughter, not the marriage partner. It's like King Philip. He was the King of England in a honorary sense. King Philip. He married Queen Mary, but he didn't stay in England too long. They didn't get along well, and they got separated. They never got divorced, of course. They were like Catholic, devoted Catholics, at least on paper, but I guess they were in, he went back to England, Spain, and then she died, but they had no children. Really, the reason they got married was to create a Catholic empire, England and Spain, and then their child would inherit both thrones, but she never had any children. I think she had all kind of serious medical problems, like she couldn't have gotten pregnant if she had wanted to, but and she wanted to. But he was the king in an honorary title, not by blood. But he apparently he tried to interfere with the government a lot over there. He was like sort of like running it. And she was like aloof, like, oh, well, whatever you want to do, you know. And people in England were not happy about it. But anyway. All right, taste time. Well, I didn't know about the can things. Cheers to everyone, says Damien. Shakespeare's time, says Tab. Right. That's right. The Globe Theater. Canadian Hunter was like alcoholic maple syrup, says Dixie Baseman. It was very plain and disappointing for the price point. I'm sorry. Well, I mean, you can get it for $8.99. So for $8.99 a bottle, you can put up with a lot, can't you? And this one now is $7.99. I'm talking about the original. So, and it doesn't taste like maple syrup so much. It was toned down. And when Sazerac took it over, they candied it up. Well, I mean, Sazerac is sort of like a cocktail company. You know, they're all into cocktails, old fashions, the Sazerac cocktail. That's their whole raison d'etre. If you get on their website, that's all they talk about. Cognac, Sazerac rye. I mean, they have a whole museum, heck, in New Orleans dedicated to making cocktails. They even have a radio show. They don't run it, but they're involved with it, I'm pretty sure. It's called The Tales of the Cocktail. It comes on every week in New Orleans, and that's what they talk about for 1 hour, cocktails. Good morning, sir, says Ronnie S. Good morning to you. Thanks for watching. All right, here we go with the taste. So for appearance, we know which is which. The darker one's Crown Royal. The pale straw is the Seagram's Canadian Hunter. Now, the aroma is even. One is more pungent and more bold, but it isn't much difference. Flavor, I think that's where it's going to be shown out. Where it's going to be shown out. Okay. That didn't come out too nice. That's bad luck, if you believe in bad luck, and I don't, but that was better. Well, I canceled each other out, maybe. I don't know. What do I know about metaphysics? I'm reading that book, The Secret Doctrine. That is like gibberish. Madame Helena Blavatsky. I said, boy, she had an imagination. People say, yeah, but she had a bad habit of stealing too, because most of her material she just like stole from other esoteric writers. They say she was a hack. I don't know. And you know what? I don't even care because somebody gave me that book. I'm just reading it. Off and on. Well, that tastes kind of sugary, sweet, grain, a little rye spice, like little malt. Well, it's like all its components. Corn whiskey mainly, little rye spice, and some bready dough from the single malt. What about wheat whiskey? It could have it. I don't know. They don't disclose their mash bill anyway, so. I need to go walking, but it's cold. It's 43 degrees. It's not making me energized to go walk, especially since I'm not feeling so well. But I'm going to do it. I'm walking 1.5 miles. I think the one in my right hand has got a much more pronounced bite. You know, it's like a little rough. A bite to it. It's like, whoa. Yeah. Now the one here is smooth. Smooth. Candy, but no bite. Candy, but no bite. I think I know which is which, you know, based on those facts, huh? You know too, don't you? Well, the bite isn't too bad. But you do pick up, I think you pick up some more grain alcohol, grain spirits. And those are like clear whiskeys. They got no color. They are unaged. Some of them might be aged a minimal time. And that's just providing the base. That's the base, the base. I mean, you could make a whiskey out of just that. Wouldn't have much flavor though. And it would be clear almost. Wouldn't appeal to too many people, but you could do it, I guess. I don't know why you would want to. So they add more developed whiskeys into the blend, you see. They might add malt whiskey that's been aged 6-7 years into Seagram's Crown Royal. Could be some that aged 10 years. It's a secret. You'll not find out. Unless you engage in industrial espionage, which I wouldn't recommend. Okay. Yeah. So which one's better? Well, okay. I think this one's a little bit better. This one's a little bit worse. But it's so close that... Good morning. Oh, yeah. I already read that. Hey, Ronnie. That it's so close that it's practically meaningless. You know what I'm saying? Now we have to look at price point. I paid $8.99 for the Hunter, but now I find out I can get it for $7.99. Crazy. Well, I'm sure until these bottles are gone, and then you'll never see it again. I'm not buying it again anyway. So Crown Royal is going to run you $23 if you're lucky. You might find it for $22, but I doubt it. So $8 versus $23. Is it really $15 better? I don't see that. I don't see it. It may be $5 better. Yeah. I guess if you paid $5 more, it's worth it. But $15? No way. I think you're buying a name. When you buy Crown Royal, you're buying the name. You're buying the pretty bottle. You're buying the name. You're buying the pretty website. Excuse me. Oh, you see. You know, all the fancy pants stuff. Which is fine. It's got cachet. People like to buy Crown Royal. They talk about it. Go and drink some Crown. You know, I know somebody I see at work a lot. He always said, this weekend I'm drinking Crown. I never heard anybody at work say, I'm going to drink some Canadian Hunter and be proud of it. I know that much. But remember now, I'm talking about the 1984 to 89 Canadian Hunter. I still don't think, even going by what I remember about the current Canadian Hunter, I don't think it's $14 better, the Crown Royal. I mean, $14 and you get a little bit better whiskey? But anyway, I bought it. I wanted to buy it. I have the Crown Royal Black. That's coming up in the next Canadian round robin. I'm going to get better fast. The Queen not able to have children may have something to do with not much straying away from the bloodline, says Caleb Jeep and Foodie. Probably not. Maybe not. Miscarriages would have more to do with that. Yeah, they had a lot of inbreeding in those royal families, especially the Habsburgs. And the Habsburgs had gotten so bad off in Spain that they basically were all born disabled, like you would call it today, severely disabled, and you'd put them in a state hospital today. It was really bad. The last Habsburg king of Spain was basically, well, he was not competent to be a king. He never actually ran the government. It's a terrible story, you know. He was very severely deformed. And that's when the King of France got like real manipulative. You know, Louis XIV said, hey, little buddy, Charles VI, I think his name was Charles VI. He says, I tell you what, you got no kids and your line has run out. You know, his dynasty had no descendants. And the closest relative was Philip of Anjou, the grandson of Louis XIV, King of France. So I tell you what, when you die, my grandson can be the king of Spain and the king of France, because, you know, he knew one day he would die and his grandson could be king of France. And then he would also be king of Spain. And then you would have the super country, you know what I'm saying? The super powerhouse, the most powerful country in Europe, without any kind of, you know, no question about that. So Charles VI was like, all right. And he signed the paperwork. And then he died in 1700, right? And the rest of Europe said, oh, no, we don't think so. You know, England, especially, in Austria, they said, no way. You're not going to have a superpower. And France said, bug off. You know, we signed it with him, and my grandson will be the king of Spain. It's all signed. And they said, he's incompetent to sign anything. He doesn't even know where he is. He dug his dead parents' bodies up so he could talk to them. I mean, that's the kind of mentality you're dealing with. So here we go. I think this is the Crown Royal because it's smoother. It is. I knew it right off the bat. Just goes to show you, you pay more, you usually get more. But in this case, you don't get way more. So it's your call, but it's your money. But if it was my choice, I mean, if it was my choice, I wouldn't buy either one, to tell you the truth. But if I was looking to buy them, I would just go with Canadian Hunter, and I would just deal with the weird flavoring that they have now, like you said, the maple syrup thing, and the kind of little bite to it. And anyway, what do you think people are doing with this stuff? All they're doing is mixing it. How many people are buying Crown Royal and drinking it straight? You say, let me think. Nobody? Right. What do you hear about it every day? Crown and Coke. And now they got the ready to drink things. That's Crown Royal's thing, man. It's mixed drinks. But then that kind of like deletes the reason for buying it. You know what I mean? It, like, you can buy a lot of cheaper products that'll mix fine, I think. And now you got these dedicated people. I'm about to get off the air, but you got these dedicated people, right? You know, these brand loyal people. They're like, I only drink Crown. I ain't drinking that garbage. But then if you gave them a blind taste test, they're screwed because they can't tell it apart. And I know a guy that works in the beer industry. He said he gave a guy a blind taste test. He was one of these dedicated Miller Lite drinkers. You know, I'll never drink nothing but my Miller Lite. So what happens? You can't tell them apart. No shock to us, I'm sure. That's what happens in the Middle East. Madame Blavatsky wasn't a thief, as she was possessed by the same demons as Crowley, says Dixie Baseman. Yeah, I don't know. It's very strange. She spends a whole lot of time talking about swastikas and Aryans and Atlantis and really weird stuff. Kirkland's Canadian is $14 for a half gallon and is comparable to Crown, in my opinion. Huh. Yeah, they have the same thing at Total Wine and More. Their own little red ensign, I think it's called, red ensign. And it's like ensign red, which is the old Canadian flag up until 1965, the unofficial Canadian flag. Turns out Canada had a flag, but it was never official. It was just a flag they used. It was a red flag with the British flag in the corner, like Australia has. And then there was a symbol in the middle with all the different parts of Canada. And they decided to adopt a neutral flag that wouldn't be too British because the French people in Canada were getting all angry all the time. You know, we don't like this flag. It reminds us of losing the war. And they're like, but you lost. It's not right. We hate it. Monsieur, it is an insult to us. And they got tired of hearing her complaining constantly, you know, so they're like, okay, we'll make a flag with a maple leaf. And it'll be bland, you know, red and white and red with a red maple leaf. It'll stand for a leaf. I was watching an interview with Joni Mitchell, and she said, and then that was the big controversy in Canada, the flag. And she said, and then when they came out with it, everybody hated it. She said it looked ugly and then it would fade, you know, red fades. She said it faded and it was ugly. And that's all she knew about politics. She said, that's all I know about politics is that they argued for years about a flag and then nobody liked it when it came out. I guess they're used to it now after over 50 years. Drinking Crown is a status symbol, says Kayla. It is, exactly. You got it. You hit the nail on the head. Well, Seagram's did okay. Now what's coming up? Paddy's, Irish whiskey versus Bushmills, white label, black label, and red label. Paddy's, get ready. This is going to be Paddy's versus Bushmills, white, red, and black. And then I got Glenlivet Founders Reserve. It's going to take me, seem like it's going to take a year to watch all those video reviews. Oh, I'm going to have to double up later today, I do believe. So you might see later this morning another taste challenge. This time it'll be Paddy's versus Bushmills. That'll be comparable because they're about the same price. Oh yeah, back to Spain. So France insisted that Philip of Anjou be put on the throne, and then the rest of Europe basically declared war on France. So it was France and Spain versus everybody else. And they lost. If you read history, France always loses. They always lost. They're like Remo in a casino, a degenerate gambler who always lost. You know, France, they always lost every war. So they, that's Louis the 14th, basically kind of like bankrupt the country because they're always fighting these wars. They always lose. And then his great grandson, Louis the 15th, he would always lose. And then by the time Louis the 16th took over the country, was out of money. I mean, like literally had no money. Sounds like another country we know of, right? With a 50-star flag. But anyway, that's how Gibraltar got taken by the British. They attacked Gibraltar in Spain during that war and they captured it. So the Treaty of, what was it, Utrecht in 1713, the war lasted 13 years. You know, they would fight off and on, like battle and then stop and then fight again. They captured Gibraltar and they said in the treaty they could have it forever, in perpetuity. Gibraltar, the British took it. It's a part of Spain. But now Spain always says, we want it back. We want it back. The British said, you signed the treaty. It said in perpetuity. That means forever. You understand what forever means, and you're not getting it back. So they never did give it back. All these years, 307 years, they kept it. It's a British territory in Spain on the coast. And it blocks all traffic entering and exiting the Mediterranean Sea. So it's very useful if a war breaks out, you could just put a stranglehold on all the traffic. And I've studied that with the British. They realized that it was a waste of money to have all these territories around the world because you'd spend $10 to make $1. You know, like literally, you'd be spending $10 to make $1. It was like so cost ineffective. So they said, well, let's just let them all go free, you know, and then we'll keep the choke points. And they kept the Turks and Caicos Islands. If you look at a map, the Turks and Caicos Islands pretty much block any entrance into and out of the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, you could just stop all commerce, right? Then you got Bermuda in the North Atlantic. You could really impact commerce there. You got Ascension, St. Helena, and Tristan da Cunha in the South Atlantic, and you could block all the commerce there. You got the Falkland Islands and South Georgia Island in South Atlantic, block all the commerce there. Around the Cape of Good Hope between West Pacific and Atlantic. Then they own the British Indian Ocean Territory, BIOT, which has no people living there, just some people working in stores and stuff, selling it to sailors. And then you got an air base there, so you in a Navy base, so you could block all the Indian Ocean traffic. So they kept choke points, which I thought was very smart. And plus they got the 2 territories in Cyprus, Navy and Air Force Base, which is right by Lebanon, right by Syria, right up there south of Turkey, and right by the Suez Canal. So anything goes down, you know what I'm saying? If anything goes down, you got it. And people need food, they got to eat, so you can blockade. But anyway, that's another story. So, but it's an interesting story, nonetheless. So there's the winner by default. It does not have a better taste. So on its own merits, it loses a little bit. But when you factor in price, it's a winner. Because I don't think this justifies the $23 a bottle price. Well, this is $45, but it's the 1,000 plus the regular size bottle. But it does not justify the $23 price. To me. You might be a Crown Royal loyalist and you love it, and you never deviate, and everything you do is about Crown. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with it. If you like it, drink it. You know, I'm just saying, in taste challenges, oftentimes it doesn't really live up to what it should live up to. That's all I'm saying. They got some Canadian whiskeys that are way cheaper that are comparable, or a decent substitute, I should say, a decent substitute. Some people claim Rich and Rare Reserve is better. I don't believe it. Oh, listen to that. But it's a good substitute. I'd save the money and buy. All right, thank you. Bye-bye.